Big story this morning as new details now contradict the White House's story on the IRS targeting scandal. The Obama administration says that low-level agents at a Cincinnati office were the ones who were behind this whole move, that they cooked it up on their own and that it was a big mistake. But those agents are now telling a House committee that the orders did not come from them, that they came directly from higher-ups in Washington. Catherine Engelbrecht is with True the Vote, one of the targeted groups in this whole thing, and Jay Sekulow is representing more than 20 of these groups. He is chief counsel at the American Center for Law and Justice. Welcome. Good morning to both of you as we continue with these big developments in this story. And I want to start with a quote from one of these employees, and this is what they said when asked about where this generated. "It's impossible. As an agent, we are controlled by many, many people. We have to submit many, many reports. So the chance of two agents being rogue and doing things like that could never happen." Jay, what's your reaction to that?
I think that's exactly correct. I began my legal career over 30 years ago in the Office of Chief Counsel, Internal Revenue Service. I was a trial lawyer for Treasury for IRS. Tax Exempt was one of our clients. They have an Internal Revenue Code manual. It's called an IRM. And they don't get to freelance these kind of questions or this kind of targeting. So there's no way this could have generated in Cincinnati. And number two, I've got letters from offices, two offices in California, and also from a tax law specialist who is handling a case out of Albuquerque in Washington, D.C., as well as Cincinnati. So we were involved with 4 offices in the 27 cases we've been handling. So this idea that it was limited to 2 rogue agents in the Cincinnati office is just factually incorrect. Now the testimony is bearing that out.
We know the White House, as late as this weekend on the Sunday shows, emphatically denies that any of this came from the White House. They're saying, that these guys went off the handle. They were rogue agents. They even, scoffed and said, look, if this was political, we would never make a mistake this stupid. This is not coming from us. Now, I want to bring in Catherine Engelbrecht, who has personal experience with this, as she and her husband created 2 organizations, the King Street Patriots and True the Vote. You have your own personal story here about what happened to you. So tell us, when you filed for this exemption, for tax-exempt status for these 2 groups that you developed, what came after that? What happened?
Well, we filed in July of 2010. And prior to that, we had never had any kind of government intervention in our lives other than just filing our yearly tax return. After filing that nonprofit application, we began to experience visits from the FBI. My husband and my business were audited for 2 years in a row. We were personally audited for 2 years in a row. We had unplanned audits from ATF 2 years in a row, OSHA, unplanned audit, and one more unplanned audit from the Texas branch of the EPA. So 5 government agencies, 18 different points of contact in 3 years, and still waiting for our nonprofit exemption status.
Yeah, so, there's 2 separate things here, because there's King Street Patriots and True the Vote, 2 organizations that you began. But then when the FBI came knocking at the door, they wanted to investigate your personal business, which is related to gun parts and equipment, correct?
Right. Well, when the FBI actually came, that was the one agency that was actually interested in the nonprofit organization side. They wanted to know about people who were coming to the program. And we told them what we could, which was very little. But then after those first initial contacts from the FBI, that became then just their follow-up, wanting to know if we had anything new to report, if we had anything we wanted to tell them. Everything else happened in the personal side. All of it, though, was a brand new world for us once we filed that nonprofit application.
And what kind of, and just to be clear, FBI and ATF, you said, came to the House, and they wanted to open up your private gun safes. They took down the serial numbers on your guns. Is that correct?
Right. Well, that's with the ATF, and then we have a gun manufacturer's license. We don't use it. And the ATF knows that because of what we file for our paperwork every year. But yes, that's part of the process. They can come out and open your safe and take your serial numbers down on your guns. We don't have any issue with that. And we don't have any issue, frankly, with any of the agencies that came out. They're all just doing their job. We just question who pointed them at us in such rapid succession.
Yeah, that's a good question, isn't it, Jay?
Well, it's a question that's not just limited to this particular case. Well, I got an email yesterday from a potential client that had a Patriot group. They've also been contacted by another government agency. And I've got a crisis pregnancy center in New York that has been targeted. The FBI's Domestic Homeland Security Division, Domestic Terrorism Division, wanted to talk to them. So I think you've got a situation right now where conservatives are just under an incredible spotlight, and it's on under an incredible spotlight because the message being emanated from the top, and that is from the President of the United States. And, you know, when you've got Senate Democrats saying this thing that happened with the IRS is horrible, it's terrible, I can't believe they did that, as if we forget that they're the ones who wrote the letter that said investigate these conservative groups, which is exactly what the IRS did.
That's
and
true.
as if we forget what the president called the Tea Party and the conservative groups. So this is no great shock
Catherine
here.
and Jay, thank you very much. I mean, you know, just to point out, the IRS's job was to figure out whether there was political activity going on in all of these 501c3 groups. The problem with this, and they were doing that part of their job, as Catherine points out. The problem with this is that they were only doing it to these conservative groups. We've yet to find any liberal groups that went under the same kind of scrutiny. So if they were doing their job, they would have been doing it even-handedly across the board with all of these organizations. Jay, thank you very much.
But a lot of the questions were not even focusing on political activity. That's part of the problem with the questions that came. It was all targeted at positions you advocate, not so much political activity.
And
it was
very
a problem
evident
from the start.
in Catherine Engelbrecht's experience. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Jay.